Welcome everybody to one of the most beautiful parts of the world, surely. This is Tuscany in Italy for round 5 of the 2024 Michelin Le Mans Cup and a first ever visit for ACO Rules Racing to the Mugello circuit. The climbs, the dips, the twists and the turns, and there's a very long straight as well to end and indeed begin the next lap. So much anticipation ahead of this weekend, not least for the European Le Mans Series race that will happen tomorrow. That's the main talking point for Sunday, but there's Michelin Le Mans Cup qualifying to happen next and their race later this afternoon, with conditions vastly improved upon from yesterday, where we had a lot of rainfall, but the skies have cleared today and some beautiful sunshine and some blue skies above as well. My name's Johnny Palmer. I'm joined as always by Graham Goodwin, the editor of dailysportscar.com, and here are the field of cars neatly assembled in the assembly area. They'll be unleashed to the pit road in a moment or two, because their base for this weekend is in quite a large paddock behind the main ELMS cars that are occupying the garages. So they'll be unleashed into the pit lane first of all, and then shortly after that we'll get our first 15-minute session underway, Graham.
We most certainly will. Good afternoon everybody from what's now a bright and breezy Mugello circuit. Actually just checked, it's not quite afternoon, so good morning from Italy for the next 3.5 minutes, and then we'll revise our target. But it will be GT3 out first. 11 cars assembled here once again, and some slight changes again. This is the beautiful setting of this truly fabulous venue, Johnny. It's owned by Ferrari, used by them for, amongst other things, Formula 1 testing. Hosted, of course, a Grand Prix as the cars are released to pit lane. And next action is going to be qualifying here for the Michelin Le Mans Cup. 2 15-minute sessions. And the first for GT3, you can see some of those cars did in LMP3 for next season. So silver gold class to come. We'll give you more details of that as we go through the weekend's action. Qualifying, of course, and the race later today, which will leave us with just the season finale at Portimao, which will be a wholly different...
As in, the race, the ELMS race is going to be on Saturday.
The ELMS race will be on Saturday, and the Michelin Le Mans Cup race will be earlier on Saturday than usual.
Yes.
So that's all to accommodate principally the second year of the European Le Mans Series rookie test.
Yes.
So 3 days of testing due to take place at Portimao, with the first of those days as an official ELMS test. Lots of other exciting stuff to come in the days that follow. But before we get to any of that, it's going to be GT3 cars, and many of you watching this broadcast, first opportunity to see these cars on this fantastic, what is it, 5.2 kilometre circuit?
It is, well remembered. And the fascinating stat for me is that of those 5.2 kilometres, only 2.7 Ks are straights.
Wow.
So you're turning for 2.5 kilometres of that lap.
Yeah.
Whether they be slow speed, high speed, medium speed, kind of every single corner is catered for here. And that's why it is the perfect test track for Ferrari as well. But it does generate good racing. I mean, I've experienced a 12-hour race here many times over, but not with prototypes, not with LMP3s, and not, as we will see in ELMS, LMP2s.
Yeah,
so
we're told the closing speeds here are eye-opening, it's got to be said. The other thing about this morning, you can see the blue skies, but the cloud above us. It's been a pretty cloudy, changeable weekend. 30 seconds
to start the GT3 qualifying session. We are under 30 seconds to start the GT3 qualifying session.
Graham Borsier, our race director for the Michelin Le Mans Cup.
Obviously, remind drivers of track limits. GT3 qualifying session will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is now open for the GT3 qualifying session.
The point I was going to make before Gwen got involved with instructing the teams there is, there's been plenty of track time this weekend so far, but then we had really heavy rain yesterday afternoon. This track is going to be pretty green.
Yes.
And will not be, whilst it's bone dry now, it certainly wasn't for the Ligier European Series first thing this morning. That track was drying out, but mixed grip. But it is going to be pretty green, despite the fact we've had the Ligiers out and Porsche Carrera Cup France plus FP2 just a a few minutes ago for the European Le Mans Series. So they're going to be tippy-toeing through it. We expect, as always, Johnny, these non-professional drivers, because it is the bronze drivers in this session, to be finding their way, and we will see progressive improvements in lap time through this session. But I think more so with the track exhibiting very different grip than yesterday.
There were 2 free practice sessions yesterday. There was also a bronze driver collective test, so only bronze drivers permitted to take part in that. So I'll just dig out the times to work out whether the bronze session was held. I think it was held in greasy conditions, if not full downpour.
Yeah.
So again, it's not really relevant or useful to working out how quick a pole time may be, for instance. Just caught a brief sight there of the Audi of Stella Motorsport, because last time out,
wasn't it?
Andrew Bentley took pole position in Spa-Francorchamps. So could that be repeated? We've not had a repeat pole sitter so far this year. Qualifying for the Road to Le Mans was somewhat up in the air and chaotic. They didn't award points, the single point for pole position in the Road to Le Mans, because I think at least one of those grids was actually decided on free practice times rather than an actual qualifying session.
Pleased to see the 88 car out. So that car had a bit of a whoopsie in one of the sessions yesterday. Came back looking other than pristine, but looks great now. 2 Blackthorn Aston Martins,
The other thing that happened to that Ferrari in an unrelated incident, and I've checked with the AF Corsa mechanics, is that in free practice 2, I think it was, the passenger door fell off. And that was because they think one of the pins in the hinges wasn't correctly seated. So partway round the lap,
the aero ripped it out.
Yeah, effectively. So the door ended up on the racetrack, I think, and there was will have been a full course caution, I would imagine, to clear that up. But they now know what failed or what wasn't done quite correctly, and will totally avoid that come this session and indeed the race later on.
So the doors on the floor rather than the scores on the doors.
Hey.
And well, 12 minutes to go, because obviously these cars getting up to speed. Let's tell you who's out there and in what. Kessel Racing's number 12 Ferrari in the hands of Frederick Jousset. Nick Jones is out in the high class racing number 18 Porsche. So we've got the Iron Dames Lamborghini on pit road. The Biogas Motorsport Ferrari from Spain is in the hands of Josep Mayola Camadara. Andrew Bentley, as we said earlier, is in last time out pole sitting 24 Stella Motorsport Audi. AF Corsa's 51 Ferrari, Matthew Kozajewski in that car. Jörg Dreishoff is in the Proton Uber Competition 73 car. 74 from Kessel Racing, Andrew Gilbert aboard. That's Ferrari 296 GT3. Iron Dames is 83 Lamborghini we saw a few moments ago in the hands of Celia Marta. Custodio Toledo is out in the number 88 AF Corsa Ferrari, and then the 2 Blackthorn Aston Martins, the number 90 in the hands of James Swift, and Claude Beauvais in the number 91 back with us this weekend.
Now, as far as the championship is concerned, Alessandro Balzan and Matthew Kozajewski lead by 27 points. We have these awkward half points incorporated into the championship because of one of the Road to Le Mans events not reaching its full distance, and because they didn't get to 50%, they actually awarded effectively what was quarter points, or half of the half points that you would normally get for a race win. So we've got 82.5 plays 55.5 back to Custodio Toledo and Riccardo Agostini, but crucially 27 points is a race win and a pole. So it might be decided this weekend.
Wow.
if the 88 have a nightmare, and likewise the Kessel Racing crew of Andrew Gilbert and Fran Rader don't have a great meeting either, and then Balzan and Kozajewski go on to win. So we'll have to monitor that later on.
We certainly will. Well, we're beginning to get times in, fastest at the moment, and remember these will change and change quickly. 1:55.459 from Frederick Jousset and that Kessel number 12 Ferrari. 35 thousandths off that is Andrew Bentley in the Stella Motorsport Audi. Looks to me though that Andrew Gilbert in the second Kessel car is about to overhaul the pair of them. Here he comes. 74 car will cross the line now with, and it is a 1:51, a much more representative time. So now Andrew Gilbert with his Michelin tyres up to temperature, and this begins to be a more realistic start point for where the real fun begins. The 1:51.959, the time to beat, There's a fair number out there at the moment who are working hard to do exactly that. 9.5 minutes remain.
Yeah, Kessel 1-2 then at this stage, with Stella Motorsports' Andrew Bentley was third, but Frederic Jose in the Kessel Racing number 12 car. No, that was Toledo's time to split the two Kessel Racing Ferraris, in fact. So 151.9, and then just 1.1 seconds back to the new time in second. But no, scratch that, because was that a deletion for Toledo?
No,
Richard Gilbert's gone through again, hasn't he?
Fred Juse has gone to the top.
He has.
With a 150.971, so it's a Kessel Racing 1-2. Andrew Bentley pops up in third. He's then shuffled back by Nick Jones, so it's changing almost as quickly as we can talk about it. James Swift, by the way, goes to the top with a 148.972. That's a cracking time for James Swift. His first visit here and his first run this weekend in this 2024 spec Aston Martin, a handsome looking car. Had a chat with James in the paddock yesterday. A little bit down about the speed that he'd managed to that point, but no need to be at this point. He's topping the times, 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, very impressive indeed. Blackthorn back with two cars then, and could it be a 1-2? Because Claude Bouvet wanting to improve as well in the number 91 car. He's 8th fastest so far. Matt Keselowski's not really set a meaningful time in the championship leading Ferrari, but he has now. The 51 crosses the line and goes third fastest with a 150.7. So there's still a fair span of times. 2 seconds separate the top four currently.
Watching the number 88 car in the hands of Custodio Toledo, he is on an improved run. He's up on the provisional pole time. Power's now down to the end of the lap. 7.5 minutes to go. Where can this lap leave the number 88 car? And the answer is second. It's 0.160 of a second back. It's James Swift leads the way for Blackthorn in the Aston Martin number 90 from the 88 AF Corsa car. Then two more Ferraris for the Kessel Racing 74 and the 51 from AF Corsa. Celia Martin, by the way, has popped up in 5th place in the bright pink LMP3 Iron Dames Lamborghini.
So Aston heading through Bouchinet corner to complete the lap, and James Swift already with a very good one to his name as that car crosses the line now. It's a 148.288,
which another half a second.
Even better indeed.
It is, and that's he's keeping himself well in contention here for the overall honours, isn't he? Andrew Bentley improves to 4th in the Stella Audi. It's Aston Martin, James Swift for Blackthorn, Custodio Toledo in the 88 AF Corsa car, Andrew Bentley in the Kessel Racing 74 Ferrari, then the other Andrew Bentley in the Stella Motorsports Audi. Those separated by just under 2 seconds. There's time to be found here, but Matthew Keselowski in the number 51 AF Corsa car, he's now out of the final turn and powering down towards the end of the lap. What can he do? It's 148.288 to beat. What can Keselowski do? And the answer is he can't. It's a 148.460. So that Aston Martin, Johnny Palmer, looks very strong in that third sector. Yeah,
Keselowski's had quite some weight since the last pole position for the number 51 Ferrari. That was way back in Barcelona at the start of the year, and not able to repeat that just yet. Custodio Toledo still getting quicker and quicker.
This could be
marks on the camera there, but I don't think it's raining. No, this camera lens is clear. And Toledo across the line, third. That was an improvement.
It was an improvement, but he was up on the pole time after sector 2. He did not manage to carry it through sector 3. And that's been a bit of a pattern with the Ferraris in this latter part of this qualifying session to this point. Blindingly quick in the first sector, pretty quick in the second sector, but dropping time to the Aston Martin in the final sector of this circuit.
They clearly don't like the medium-speed hairpins at Corintao and Bouchinet in that case. There's some high-speed stuff in sectors 1 and 2. Sector 3 begins at the exit of Pelagio, which is turn 11. Andrew Gilbert in his Kessel Racing Ferrari then, heading down the hill and into Corintao, which is a tricky approach. The track really dropping away from you, but it is cambered. So if you get to the racing line, that kind of draws you into the apex.
Yeah, he's lost a position with a track limits violation. Andrew Gilbert is dropped behind Andrew Bentley into 5th. Matthew Keselowski, by the way, is well up on the pole time, provisional pole time at the moment. in the number 51 car. Here he is, coming to the end of his lap. Half a second up at the end of sector 2. What can he do this time about the 1:48.288 from James Swift that currently sits top of the times?
We wait.
And it's track limits, he's not beaten it. He's not beaten it.
Has it given us a time, nevertheless? A 1:48.434, is that the one? No, still wouldn't have been enough, because he needs to get below a 2:88. So he would have been a couple of tenths shy of that marker, and he didn't do that lap within the confines of the racetrack.
Here comes Toledo. He too is up after sector 2. What about this tricky third sector for the Ferraris? And again, he does not improve. So James Swift, back out again, is up on his own time by almost a tenth of a second after sector 1. Has he done enough here? There's definitely pace in these Ferraris, but they've not been able to convert it into a full lap time.
Yeah, it's not in the right places in comparison to the Aston. So here is the Aston of James Swift, and he is finding time. He did a 37 flat through the first sector, which is the car's best so far in this session. But Toledo, cracking opening sector there, a tenth up on the provisional pole. Also improving Celia Martin on her personal best time, that is. And who else? Well, Kurzajewski, not on this lap. Track limits last time around, and no sector times, no blue sector times so far on this one.
James Smith completes that lap, no improvement. He's now got potentially traffic ahead on his next lap with 2.5 minutes to go in this session. At the moment, it is the Blackthorn debutant, James Swift, in the number 90 Aston Martin Vantage GT3. Leads the way by just under 0.2 of a second from the first of what is second and third for AF Corsa's Ferraris. Both those cars have put in lap times that have looked like they're on track to beat it, but both have lost pace and indeed times in that third sector, and in particular to track limits here, that final turn. Here comes the number 88 of Catadio Toledo. This will not count. He's had track limits in the middle sector. How good was that lap? Not good enough. He'll get 2 more shots at this if he wants them, and if they're useful.
Track limits infringements. There are spots in the first sector, but also in the second sector as well. I would imagine that's going to be in the area of Arrabbiata, particularly on the exit of turn 9, Arrabbiata 2. Very easy to run wide coming on the exit of that corner, straddle the curb, or worse, drop a couple of tyres in the gravel trap out of turn 9 and on towards the approach at Scarperia corner.
Andrew Bentley starts what will be his last flying lap, should he choose to continue at speed. He's 1.1 seconds off, not looking as if pole position is within his grasp here for the Audi. Meantime, the 51 car of Matthew Kurzajewski, again 0.3 up on the pole position pace, or the provisional pole pace of James Swift. Can he finally nail this final sector, Johnny? Pole within his grasp here. He's got the speed in this car, but this is the point at which they've been bleeding off that pace.
Yeah, there are different ways of certainly attacking the Buccini corner at the end of the lap. You can go faster into it, and therefore a higher line gives you the slingshot out. Others like to stick to the more traditional apex. Kurzajewski over the line, another improvement. He's down to 83 thousandths of a second now to James Swift's time, and there's change on the clock to do one more lap.
James Swift has pitted his car, so he is now no longer a moving target. I said about Andrew Bentley not being within reach of pole. Well, he wasn't on the previous fastest lap. He is now. He's just a tenth down after sector 2, but he has got a Ferrari ahead of him. Now, is that going to be a problem, or is that going to be an advantage with a bit of a tow?
Drew, it's along the long straight. Oh, no, that was too much of a tow, because the Ferrari wanted to get into the pit road. That's Kurzajewski wanting pit lane, and Andrew Bentley surely had to slow the car down. He certainly had to steer dramatically left, and that could have been a big incident, in fact. Thankfully avoided. No time to repair cars with the race today.
Lost a full second there, and that's cost him. It was a personal best in sectors 1 and 2 for the Audi man, but dramatic drop, well over a second off the pace because of that near incident off the apex of the final turn. He stays 6th. Meantime, James Swift is on pit lane. Both the chasing AF Corsa Ferraris are up on his time. In the case of Matt Kurzajewski, it was the Kessel car, by the way, heading to the pits.
No, I was just about to offer my apologies. It's nothing to do with Matthew Kurzajewski. I'm fearful now for Fred Jose, though. Could that actually be a penalty post-race for interfering with another lap time? Yes, fine, go for the pits, but you can't be slowing down before you get to the speed limit line.
That looked neat and tidy from the number 51 car. Could this be good enough for pole? 6/10 up on sector 2. Kurzajewski crossed the line. And where does he end up? He doesn't. 25 thousandths of a second off.
How close couldn't you possibly get without not getting there? Well, I suppose there was another 24 thousandths to condense the gap, but he came very, very close and improving all the time. We said these drivers would. Custodio Toledo's still got a shot of improving potentially. Could he bag a front row start within GT3 at the death? No, he can't. It's a 148.849, which does not improve on the 48.7 that he'd already set. So it'll be a Blackthorn Aston Martin on pole position. Well done to James Swift after that lap time.
That's a first this year, isn't it?
Corsa Ferraris, it is a first, yeah. The AF Corsa Ferraris have to settle for 2nd and 3rd.
That means we continue this pattern of no repeat pole position setter in the Michelin Le Mans Cup this season. Excellent stuff. The other thing it shows here, Johnny, is that these GT3 cars deliver their performance in very different ways. We saw throughout that session the Ferraris were quicker through sectors 1 and 2 consistently, but the Aston Martin ate them alive through sector 3.
Yes, yeah, it was all about what time that they could get in those fairly open hairpins. There's one at turn 12, there's one at turn 15. It's obviously also very fast through the Biondetti chicane as well. And that is effectively all of the final sector. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 corners within it, but it also needs to be strong coming out of that final corner and heading to the line. 148.288 for James Swift for a first Aston Martin pole position of the season, ahead of the 2 Ferraris that are right up there in the championship, 51 leading the championship and only 25 thousandths of a second slower from the 88 of Custodio Toledo. Then Celia Martin in the Iron Dames Lamborghini, 4th fastest and quicker than the 2 Andrews, Gilbert and Bentley. One in a Ferrari for Kessel, one in an Audi for Stella Motorsport. Frederic Jose for Kessel Racing, 7th, ahead of the sister Blackthorn Aston of Claude Bouvet. Then it was Jörg Dreishoff for Proton Huber competition in a Porsche. High Class Racing's Porsche, Nick Jones. And Josep Maiola in the Biogas Motorsport Ferrari will complete the GT3 field.
Yeah, while we were checking out the battle for the overall pole, which of course we should be noted that late improvement for Celia Martin, putting the Iron Dames Lamborghini on the 2nd row and overhauling the efforts of both the Andrews, Andrew Gilbert in the 74 Kessel Racing car and Andrew Bentley in the Stella Motorsport car. So excellent final part of that session for Celia Martin.
Too right, and again, a driver who was getting more and more used to how this track maybe develops through the course of the session as well. So all smiles at Blackthorn.
So Oscar there, long-time competitor in LMP3 in this package for both the European Le Mans Series and the Michelin Le Mans Cup. I believe, by the way, he's sharing the car with our pole setter. This is the first ever race in a GT car for Ross, and Ross has been around the racing scene for a very long time.
That is a surprise, but sounds right now that you've said it. Yeah, Ross is sharing with James Swift. David McDonald back again to share with Claude Bouvet in the number 91 Aston Martin, because you may remember that Darren Turner was in Spa-Francorchamps replacing an injured David McDonald, who had broken his back, I think, and I was surprised that he was able to be back again so soon. Not sure when the injury itself took place, but wonderful to have David back in the number 91 car, and sharing with his Swiss teammate Claude Bouvet. So, James Swift on pole position, joined by Ross Kaiser. We've had other drivers in that Blackthorn Aston earlier on in the year. Martin Berry and Lucan Hannafin, indeed, took part at Le Mans in the Road to Le Mans events. But now we change the scene entirely and switch to the prototypes, and many of them, 27 cars, are about to take part in this session. It is a 5.2 kilometre circuit, but space is going to be at a premium here, just hunting out that open ground in order to set your lap time, and that's a challenge for bronze drivers as well.
It most certainly is. A few changes amongst drivers' squads for this race. One car missing. We did see the damage caused with that shunt at Spa for the Stella Motorsports number 42 Duquesne. That car not with us this weekend, but there's 27 others about to rumble. And to remind you, we've got this weekend and one more with this very familiar soundtrack in LMP3 before the big change comes for 2025 with a new power plant for LMP3, a twin turbo V6 coming. And lots of activity, by the way, behind the scenes in the paddock with the 4 manufacturers posturing for sales. We've obviously got the Ligiers here in great numbers, Duquesne also represented on this grid, but Ginetta and Ades also looking for customers and, I believe, finding them.
Okay. I just wanted to mention Breton Racing,
yes,
because we caught a glimpse of the number 62 car. There was quite an adjustment to the eventual result in Spa-Francorchamps. So if you enjoyed the final moments of that race, as we all did, actually there was a post-race penalty for the number 13 M Racing crew of Romano Ricci and Alexandre Cugnot. But you might remember that bizarre moment where the 67 Hegeli car didn't serve its mandatory pit stop time. It was about 40 seconds short. There was a penalty for that, but in the end it didn't come in to serve its penalty. So 67 was leading on the road, but we knew that that would be put back with time. The next legal car on the road was the 13, but there was then some contact coming out of the chicane at the end of the lap, literally on the final run to the line. And it seemed fairly minor from our perspective, but it was looked back on by the stewards, and a 5-second penalty was issued to car 13. Everybody was bunched together, so that was incredibly damaging to M Racing. It put them back to 7th, where they only scored 6 points rather than what they thought might be 25. And as a result, Breton Racing elevated to the race win. So we should say congratulations to Ben Stone and Theodore Jensen.
In their first season in the championship.
Correct. So, you know, could that be the start of something, perhaps?
Yeah,
Sadly, they weren't able to celebrate at the podium.
Rather difficult. Does that mean that M Racing can no longer win the championship?
I haven't worked that out entirely. What it does mean is they won't be second in the championship coming to this race, and it could have been so much better. It might have cost them the championship, yes, or it might be a kind of weird, wonderful permutation that will see them win it. They're back in 7th in the championship on a 23 and a half, but there's still 52 points available.
Yep.
So it is still possible.
Yep.
But it's a stretch.
So we're about to get that soundtrack. You've heard elements of it, the opening bars of the V8 powered symphony that is about to rattle around this natural bowl of a track. Fabulous place to come and watch motor racing. If you're ever in this region and there's any kind of event on here, do come and see this place. Absolutely fabulous place to come and watch motor racing. The drivers love it. It's got natural rise and fall and flow. Just watching here. Oh, that car tried to leave, but was still on its jacks, I think.
Yeah, I reckon that's the case. So the cars all have internal jacks.
Under 30 seconds to start LMP3 qualifying session.
Pneumatically powered, so airline gets plugged in and that pushes the rods downwards and the car up.
Well, the fact that traction indicated that the
LMP3
jacks at the back were down.
Will start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is now open.
Unless it was on the dollies and we just...
Yeah, possibly. Or
didn't look it.
Or, you know, the rear jacks released and the fronts did not.
That would be, if something went wrong there, that would be my presumption.
Yeah. So the lollipop came back down again. Somehow they did eventually drop. Maybe the airline was plugged back in and then released, and that reset the mechanism. But I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Well, away we go in any case, and this, as you absolutely correctly said at the start, before we went to green flag here, Johnny, is going to be about these teams finding clear space to fully express themselves. And, lots of very experienced bronze drivers, a few more so than Tony Wells, who's the second of two cars in this train. It's the Racing Spirit Le Mans number 10 car ahead of Tony's Nielsen Racing Run number 7. Both these cars Ligier's, of course, the JSP 320, about to be replaced by the third generation of Ligier LMP3 car, the GSP 325. See what they did there? 2025, of course.
Ah, yes. That fits.
But I think I'm right in saying that in international terms, and our good friends at Radical in Peterborough will be on the phone, I'm sure, to talk about the numbers of SR3s they've sold, but by a distance at international levels, at this level, the most successful platform, I think, ever in sports prototype racing. Something well over 200 of these cars now built.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just exploded in terms of interest. This championship, believe it or not, ran in its first year without any LMP3s, and then they were introduced for the Road to Le Mans that year. That went really quite well. So the following year, 2017, LMP3s were initiated into the championship permanently. We kind of never looked back, and now it's going to be two-layered regarding the driver lineups for 2025. So that's exciting as well, because there's always been the complication. If you wanted to run a gold driver in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, the second driver would have to be bronze. But now there's going to be gold and silver combinations permitted moving forward.
Indeed, which I think could light this up. Without a shadow of a doubt, could light this up. So we are just 2 race meetings, including this one, away from the end of the 10th series in LMP3.
Something happened to the 59 car a short moment ago as well.
Bit of a wiggle
Just
across
a worm around, yeah, that's
cold tyres.
More perhaps just to get the tyre temperature increased, so that's Oscar Bitar.
Likely be a couple of laps before we start to see meaningful times emerging here. What a great platform this has proved to be, LMP3, for a range of talent. Pro talent coming through. Melter Jacobsen, what a great example he is. Job Venuta, another one. Pro-Am talent with bronze-ranked drivers making their way up through P3 to onwards into LMP2 and to Le Mans, of course. And then the teams. Nielsen Racing here became, after racing in club and international racing in Radicals, with the second time mentioned for Radicals this broadcast, moving through into LMP3 in a wide variety of series. Here in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, European Le Mans Series, the Asia Le Mans Series, Ultimate Cup, I think, has been part of their remit as well. And in the UK, the short-lived UK LMP3 Cup, and then on into LMP2 as well for them, and a huge number of other teams making their way through P3 into P2 and to the Le Mans 24 Hours, the absolute pinnacle, of course, of international sports car racing, as well as of course, racing around the world. Prototype Cup Germany now licensed by the ACO with LMP3, and of course the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, and a variety of other IMSA sanctioned series that have used this platform. And still it continues to attract interest and attract new customers. Quickest in the session though, Johnny, and it will not be a time, I'm sure, that stands at the end of this session.
Car off though, and also I was concerned about Fabien Michel, that I think he was just trying to buy himself some track space, unless they've collided. No, it was with the Hegeli car, number 67, and
it's a red flag. It
is a red flag. That's Goodmanson in the Team Tour car, is it not?
It is.
Yeah.
Jamie Falvey had just gone to the top of the times for Breton Racing with a 1:46.328. Just 69 thousandths ahead of Adrian Schiller, but it'll be a quick recovery required here for Auden Gudmundsson.
And that is Bucine corner, the final fairly open hairpin that runs downhill and onto the main straight. So an innocuous spin, but the problem is, as he went towards the edge of the track and the gravel trap, the rear wheels have dug in, and just any amount of throttle will result in those tyres just getting deeper and deeper.
Well, incident involving car 67, it was Peter de Kurtens and Auden Gudmundsson at turn 15 under investigation. That's significant, because if they do make a decision about who was at fault, we could see a car eliminated from proceedings here.
Yes.
Because it's brought out a red flag.
Yes, and you can be the cause of a red flag. However, if another car hits you and you end up in the gravel, it's a little unfair to then rule you out for the rest of the session. So there's maybe a decision to be made now. It is under investigation, as Graham mentions.
So you can see there the two rear wheels of the 77 car. This is the Team Tour car, run for Auden Gudmundsson and Colin Noble by High Class Racing.
Breton Racing, winners last time out,
Yep.
fastest again to this point, but we've only had times from half the field. And
There
the
is the
majority of
26 car.
those cars that have not done times yet are already back into the pit lane.
Car 77 will be allowed to rejoin the session. So it's been determined that that was certainly not a fault of, that says he's under investigation causing a red flag.
Oh, so there was a message initially saying it'll be fine, and now it's saying it's under investigation. Okay.
Right.
I don't think they've got to the bottom of that yet. To me, it's kind of side-by-side contact. It's very difficult to work out precisely whose error that was, if indeed it was an error.
There was a lot of space.
Yes.
And then there wasn't.
Yes. So are you suggesting the 67 car closed that space when there was a car on the inside?
I think you've got to look at where the impact took place, and the answer is in the front half of that car.
Yeah. Very often, if cars are overlapping and then one attempts to not make contact, but the contact is made, if there is a spinning car, often it is that spinning car's fault. But I think in this case that is not what I would suggest. It's very difficult because they've got to make a decision quickly here, because we're going to restart with only 10 minutes on the clock. So is it just a question that they just allow the 67 and the 77 to continue and then investigate that incident in isolation later on in the day?
Well, looked to me like Auden Gudmundsson was on a flying lap. It looked to me like Peter de Kurtens was not. And if you're on a flying lap and there's a gap that wide, you're going to go for it.
Yeah.
And if you're not on a flying lap and you're leaving that gap, then you should be looking at a qualifying session as to whether or not anybody's taking advantage of the space you've given them. Would be my assessment of it.
Yeah.
So Auden will make his way back to pit lane, and we'll be getting back to green flag running, I'm sure, as soon as the intervention vehicles and staff are in a place of safety. They want to get this back running. It is 10 minutes and 11 seconds left on the clock. I think that might be our professional pole sitter just tucking into pit lane behind. The session will resume on a short call. Stay with us.
That's Michel. That's Fabien Michel, who had slowed up dramatically before the red flag, and I was concerned that might have been a mechanical problem, but I do think it was deliberate, in fact, and he was trying to buy himself some space. And then we had the incident for Auden Gudmundsson, which rather took the headlines after that. But Jamie Falvey is in pit road in company of his team, so they'll be sending that car out again, I would have thought. It's only 69 thousandths of a second that Falvey has in his back pocket over Adrian Schiller in the number 97 car. Then it's Jens Moller for High Class Racing, number 20, and Ben Stone for Breton Racing right up there again. Julien Lemoine for ANS Motorsport, 5th fastest. Horst Felbermeyer for Reiter Engineering is 6th. And then M Racing's Romano Ricci, More Motorsports' Mark van der Schnell, George Nakas in the GG Classics car, and Tony Wells in the Nielsen Racing, number 7.
That's our top 10, but though to give you an impression of just how much pace there is to come, those top 10 at the moment covered by 9 seconds.
Yeah.
So the ones towards the back end of that order will be expecting to go much, much faster. The likes of Tony Wells should be on pace right up there at the sharp end of this grid, and has not yet posted a meaningful lap time. So we wait for the decision from Gwen Boursier as to when to recommence this session. As I say, it will be a 2/3 distance time, if you like, when we get back to green flag running. There's our professional pole setter, the left-hand side of the shot, the black and white, rather zebra-striped Breton racing car, rather than the 2019 Rebellion LMP1 Tribute 62. And we go green.
So back into qualifying format we go for the second time. One car struggling to get away, the Team Virage. No, sorry, beg your pardon, that's the Inter-Europol competition offering. Same bit of yellow in the same place, but then I saw the green. So it's the Polish squad with their car heading back out onto the racetrack. And predominantly those rejoining, well, they'll have the better positions in pit road, the early stoppers. So they're all pouring out onto the racetrack, and those that got back to the pit lane somewhat delayed because of the red flag speed that you have to do, they're much further back down the queue and have to be more patient. Haven't had any more messages about who's permitted to return to the session. So Gudmundsson, or did we have a corrective?
We didn't.
No,
So,
okay. So
just looking to see the 77 car is still on pit road.
but 67 is in the session. Yeah, Peter de Curtens, who is one of the cars that has offered a time, but it's a 2 minutes, 0.1. That is the only Duquesne to have set a time so far.
Gudmundsson is back into this session, and let's concern ourselves now with times. One quick point here is, with 5 minutes effectively being burned here for the vast majority of the cars, and in fact we now get a message to say that Peter de Curtens is under investigation for causing a red flag. Quite correct, they should investigate both, to be honest with you. That's all I must say on that one. This is where the pendulum swings the way of the more experienced drivers. They will be able to be better able to soak up the pressure of the fact that they've got 5 minutes less to nail a time here. So my guess would be that this will start to kind of fall the way of people who've got a little bit more experience of these cars underneath them. So we get the first car starting their second go at the flying lap. It is the Cool Racing car, that's the 97, isn't it, that leads the 87 rather, that leads the train.
But yes, an ability to not be fazed by various things that happen in the session that weren't planned, weren't necessarily thought about, but you have to not let them affect you, put them aside, maybe give them thinking time once everything is done and dusted. And those that have been in one of the two of these sessions that have been stop-starts over the years are better equipped, you might argue.
Yeah, James Sweetnam here in the number 87 car does have a pretty clear track ahead of him. There is one car a couple of corners ahead that he might well catch, but beyond that he's got a pretty clear Mugello circuit ahead of him to have a bit of a play here and try to find a decent lap time. 87 at the moment without a lap time against the car, but is up, as we might expect, on provisional pole time as things stand.
And I mentioned Inter-Europol competition. Neither of their cars, Alex Bukantsov and Tim Kresick, have set times either, 34 and 43. A couple of Team Virage cars outside of the timed machines as well so far. So Georgios Kolovos, Oscar Bitar, who had that slight moment coming out of one of the Arabiatas as the car moved beneath him. And Fabien Michal in the 85, having topped a couple of the sessions already this weekend. So 85 is looking strong again. And as far as the championship is concerned, the 85 car you would expect to be maybe slightly better placed than it is. It's still second in the championship and trailing by 8.5 points. Oh, long way off the circuit there for the Racing Spirit of Le Mans number 10 car. That's being driven by Christophe Lapierre.
Yeah, more than a hint of track limits there.
Just a tad. Didn't really help him though. That was at the Arabiatas, so very fast approach to the Arabiatas, even quicker exit, but way out in the gravel he went.
Now here comes some quicker times. Lots of cars in the 144s. First of them was James Sweetnam, but he got beaten to the punch by Shahan Sarkisian. It's a CD Sportman that goes through and into provisional pole. He's then shuffled back by Jens Grainer Moller with 144.198. That was a big wiggle, wasn't it? Lost the rear end of the car just for a moment as well, and managed to steer through, and helpfully for everybody else, managed to bring it all the way through and back onto track.
That is a classic show you pass to get back in again almost, because the perimeter road is just the other side of that tyre wall and debris fencing, but he didn't get anywhere close to that, fortunately, and the car can carry on, but it'll be noisy in there now with all that gravel rattling around in the chassis. Jamie Falvey, fastest. He's improved to 143.962, but Jens Moller...
Oh, trouble.
Big trouble. Jens Moller's just improved as well. That's one of the MV2S cars off the road, 28. Has there been another red flag? So it's a second stoppage, 5 minutes and 4 seconds still to go. Is that Arabiata again?
It's Terence Woodward in the MV2S car. I know it's the same bump. It was almost the same accident, wasn't it? Unfortunately, didn't manage to keep the car in a relatively straight line. Did make impact with the barrier. Doesn't appear to be too much damage, but that is going to be end of session for Terence Woodward.
I think Terence may have just missed the very end of the first tyre wall, but the rear caught the one further back on the overlap. If there was a touch,
I think he touched it with the front.
Yeah, maybe there's a bit of damage on the front right as well, and Terence forlornly walking away from the scene, which is obviously good news for keeping Terence Woodward safe, but it'll be no more for that car in this session, and even if he was to be able to get it back, he probably would be ruled out of it for causing the red flag. We now only have 5 minutes and 4 seconds remaining on the clock. So they will be able to be released, go round once and begin a quick lap. But if you're not quick...
They might get to.
Yeah, those at the front will.
Yeah.
Probably everybody's guaranteed one more. But if you're not in that leading gaggle...
He barely caught it, did he? There's just that... It's almost a double apex, but it's not quite. He barely caught the end of it, but he saw it unsettle the car in exactly the same way as had happened with the Racing Spirit Le Mans car. He did indeed. He hit with front right. Side-on impact, not the nose, actually to the side. You can see where the damage has come there on the side of the car.
Yeah.
It's deranged the front bodywork inwards on what is to our left, his right. There you go. Thank you very much for that angle.
Well, yeah, the dive plane is now underneath the headlight lens, so it's still kind of attached, but it's been pushed further into the nose construction.
The worst news, by the way, is that you can see there's impact damage on the wheel, and that transferred force might mean there's damage inboard. It's not just bodywork. There might well be other things that need to be looked at there, steering arms and suspension, etc.
But there was also some damage to the rear. Now, most of the momentum had been taken out, perhaps by the contact on the front, but he definitely kissed the tyre barrier with the rear wing as well, so that's deranged also. But yeah, from the angle that we have, it's difficult to work out whether that's just a bump in the road that maybe was the issue for the Spirit of Le Mans, the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car, or whether Terence actually ran over some high curbs around here as well. I think I agree with you that it's more of actually just a lip in the road, which you want to try and avoid where possible, but it's difficult to do in a qualifying lap.
Well, let's call it as it stands at the moment. You can see there the only car underneath 144 and just barely is Jamie Falvey in the number 26 Breton Racing car. 26 leads the way by just under a quarter of a second from Jens Moller in the number 20 High-Class Racing Ligier. The top 8 cars in the order at the moment, all Ligiers. Shahan Sarkisian in the number 2 CD Sport car follows on from James Sweetnam in the 87 Cool Racing car. MV2S's other car in the hands of Jacek Zielonka, the 29 car, 5th quickest. Ben Stone for the 2nd Breton Racing car, both those cars in the top 6, is 6th. Oscar Bitar for Team Virage in the 59 car, 7th. Then Alexander Bekantsov in the 34 Inter Europol competition. Ligier is 8th. Then the first of the 2 Duquesnes, because Fabien Michal has not set a time here, and did he leave the? He did leave the pits, but did not set a flying lap either on his 2nd attempt. So he's the one car out there without a lap time to his name. Romano Ricci in the number 13 M Racing car is 10th quickest. Looking further down the order, Tony Wells only 11th so far. Adrian Schiller, another highly experienced racer in LMP3, is 12th. Mark van der Snel, by the way, I think More Motorsport with all the Ferrari post-race made their first podium last time out, and the family-run team sitting pretty there, 13th on this grid. Auden Gudmundsson after his interrupted session, as we see Terence Woodward wandering slowly back. that Otto Gudmundsson is 15th at the moment. And looking further down, any other drivers way out of their league? Well, the other one is obviously Fabian Michel, who's been a pace setter all season and so far has not given us a time lap.
Yeah. The Van der Snells, I do have them finishing third. I just want to make sure that that is echoed in the championship positions as well. Yep, they got 15 points. So that was after there was an appeal to the initial provisional classification in Spa-Francorchamps, and M Racing wanted that to be looked at again. It was looked at again, but the decision was upheld and remains the same. So they still finished 6th, and that moved everybody else up 1 in the Spa-Francorchamps result. Sadly, the 28 car is now going to, well, start at best 18th. It remains to be seen whether it will also have times removed, times it's already set prior to that off-track incident. All on his own for Terence Woodward, but an easy mistake to make because the 10 car had done that similar manoeuvre just 2 minutes before.
85 is one car to watch when this session gets back underway, but the bad news for that team is they're not in the outside lane and they're pretty far back, I think, in the pit lane. That might cost them a second flying lap, depending on how quickly they can complete this out lap. Still on the red flag for the moment. That, I'm sure, will change very shortly. We'll have 5 more minutes. There we go. It'll be, I think, as soon as the 28 car is in a place of safety and marshals are back on post. We'll get back to green flag running. 5 minutes to go. As I was saying just before this session was neutralised, or just after this session was neutralised, Johnny, for the cars at the front of the train, the possibility of 2 flying laps after 1 warm-up lap, but what's left in the tank here in performance? Away we go, and the clock starts to tick down immediately.
So you can't afford to hang around with only 5 minutes left on the clock, particularly if you're in the seat of Fabian Michel. And it might just have to be a banker lap for the 85 car here to make sure he doesn't make a mistake, he doesn't breach the track limits, just get a time done to be able to start from the grid. And if you're inside the top 10, well, that's a bonus.
Well, we started this session at 5 minutes and 4 seconds to go. The RHGP car is still not out there.
Still waiting for the 85 to join. Adrian Schiller in the 97 car is on the move now. And 1 or 2 others. No, 85 is moving now. So they have chosen to wait for as long as possible.
But it's going to be 1 lap.
Yes.
Jamie Falvey also late into the order. It is a full minute it took them to get off pit lane. So it's 4 minutes left. And with something like 2 minutes required, might make a second lap. They might, but I think unlikely.
I think they've thought, right, what would we prefer to have? 2 laps at this, or a clear track so we can really concentrate on 1 lap? But it does rather put the pressure on Fabian Michel.
Yeah, they are at the head of a 4-car train at the back of this field on track, and behind them is the provisional pole sitter.
Yeah, so they have decided of Breton Racing to release Jamie Falvey into the session as well, because, well, it's a better margin to be resting on now. It was only 0.06 of a second when I checked it last time. It's nearly a 1/4 of a second though now. Falvey to Moller. Shahan Sarkissian right up there as well, as he so often is in the CD Sport Car number 2. James Sweetnam for Cool Racing, 4th fastest. And then Jacek Zilonka, the other MV2S racing car, with a good time.
Well, away we go. It's under 3 minutes to go as the majority of these cars now crossing the line. Just keen to see exactly where this trailing group of 3 or 4 cars are when they get across the line. And if it's anything close to 1 minute and 45 seconds, it's going to be time. They're going to get 2 laps. They're going to get 2 laps.
Yeah.
Already seeing improvements in sector times, including from Alexander Bekantsov. He's gone almost 3/10 quicker than the provisional pole pace at the moment in sector 1. as has Shahan Sarkisian. Those two lap times at the moment, by the way, separated by just 3 thousandths of a second as those two cars attack Jamie Falvey's best lap so far.
I've just had it drawn to my attention, by the way, and apologies for this, if you're tracking live timing on the official Michelin Le Mans Cup website, for some reason there's a load of World Endurance Championship cars on that screen as well, rather complicating matters. Nicholas Nielsen and Jose Maria Lopez are not in this session, let me assure you. We'll try and dig out the times because we don't have that complication on our live Alcamel screens.
Did spot Kaz Nakajima, by the way, in the paddock. He's here supporting Rotoma Miata in Cool Racing, because obviously he's a Toyota Junior driver, or the development driver. Fabien Michel, by the way, is 3/10 up on the provisional pole time at the moment after Sector 1. Needs to keep this on the island. Shahan Sarkisian, though, moves the needle and moves it substantially. So 1:43.280. That's a cracking lap time for the CD Sport driver.
Yeah, jumping ahead of a couple of cars then, because he was only on the inside of the second row a few moments ago. Alexander Bukantsov's right up there as well for Inter-Europol competition. So Sarkisian for CD Sport, car number 2. Ahead of now Peter de Kurtens in the 67 Hegeli by T2 Racing. Duquesne. So it's a Ligier and a Duquesne on the front row. Jamie Falvey is shuffled back to 3rd position. Bukantsov alongside him in this provisional grid. We've still got time for Fabien Michel to begin another fast lap. And where's he going to end up this one?
It's going to be pole. It's going to be, I think it is. He's gone pole by nearly half a second. It's a fantastic lap from Fabien Michel and the RSGP 85 Duquesne from nowhere. Well, from 0 to hero right now, and he leads the way by 0.45 a second, and he has an opportunity for another lap time. It's a 1:42.828. To put that into context, that is a full second quicker than the provisional pole time we had before the second red flag.
The checker flag's being displayed. Nobody on the main straight yet ready to receive it. First car across the line will be the 34 of Alexander Bukantsov, who could again be set for improvement because Bukantsov going faster through the middle sector. Purple for Jamie Falvey in Sector 1, though. So there is time for a response. Bukantsov sees the checkered flag, does not improve. However, de Kurtens looking slightly better. Oh, but there was a contact there to the rear of the Ligier up ahead.
That's the More Motorsport car.
More Motorsport for the Van der Snells.
That's going to end his capability of attacking that time, isn't it?
And it was into Buccinet corner, so right at the end of the lap. So we're looking now out for certainly the Jamie Falvey car for Breton Racing. Also about to improve. Well, I was about to say, no, that was the de Kurtens car. Blue, though, elsewhere for Tim Kresick, who will pop up to join the Bukantsov time. And it's looking like an all Inter-Europol 4th row for that matter. 85 about to cross the line, but won't improve Fabien Michel. The difficulty here, the slight complication, is that Jamie Falvey is in behind, but he's lost time in the middle sector, though, as well.
Goes to 3rd, Jamie Falvey.
OK, that's better than I thought it might be because of the time lost in Sector 2, but Jamie Falvey will start from the 2nd row and alongside the other Breton Racing car of Ben Stone. So 26 and 62 locking out the 2nd row. However, no halting the progress of Fabien Michel, and he literally needed 1 lap to do that.
He did indeed. By the way, set a purple sector on his 2nd flying lap, did not improve. He was some 2/10 off at that best time, but his 2nd best time would still have been good enough for pole. So he set in his final 2 laps the 2 quickest times in the session under huge pressure, having not set a flying lap to that point. Exceptional final 5 minutes from Fabien Michel. RHGP on pole position from CD Sport. Shahan Sarkisian almost half a second back, though, from the flying Duquesne driver. There is our pole setter. That was quite something.
Particularly because it really had not gone to plan to that point, and you were talking about, you know, not getting phased, having a bit of experience about how these sessions run. And that is precisely what has happened for the 85 crew. They were patiently waiting in the interval of the 2 red flags. He came out, he set the time. Superb. Let's get some reaction now from our pit lane reporter, Steph Wentworth.
I am joined by Adrian David, driver, co-driver of the man who has just put it on pole once again. Huge congratulations. This sets you up very nicely for the race later on today, doesn't it?
Honestly, it's been the most stressful qualifying I've lived in my life. I was more stressed than when I'm driving myself. Honestly, big congratulations for Fabien, because we only had 5 minutes remaining with no lap time, and he did just an incredible lap time, beating my record of yesterday. So, yeah, very impressive.
And it's a very new track. It's a different track. What do you expect the challenges that you're going to face later on to be?
Race will be another story. We have always been strong this year on the qualifying and always struggled on races. So yeah, main target will be to give me the seat in first position, and then I will try to maintain the gap and put it on P1 would be the target to be in the title fight for Portimao.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Fabien Michel actually going quicker than Adrian David managed in the sessions yesterday, the dry sessions, I'm assuming, because I mean there was a considerable condition change, but that is mightily impressive from Bronze Michel. He's learning very quickly. Adrian David will be part of that though as well with the coaching that he offers. Now though there is a car under investigation for impeding in the session, which is the 99 car of Mark van der Schnetten.
We saw that. That was the 99 car ahead of Peter de Curtens.
Yes.
So
slowing down.
Yeah.
Okay. Might be bang to rights. R8GP with another pole position for the 2024 season. Ahead of Shahan Sarkisian, who'll be kicking himself to have just missed out. But it was by about half a second in the end. Jamie Falvey in the first of 2 Breton Racing cars locking out the second row. So Falvey ahead of Ben Stone in the sister 62 car. Then the Hegeli by T2 Racing machine of Pieter de Curtens. That could have been a lot better were it not for the incident at Biondetti. Jacek Zilonka for MV2S Racing, 6th fastest. Then the 2 Inter-Europol competition cars, Bukantsov and Kresik. High-class Racing's Jens Moller, who was right up there for most of that session and ends up finishing 9th fastest. And then to complete the top 10, Georgios Kolovos of Team Virage. And here now, stepping out of the car and receiving a number of high fives from the R8GP crew, Fabien Michel. Well, he's certainly done a cracking job there with the limited time that was allowed in the end. 2 red flags, a tricky session to navigate, and the race could be similar later on. 1 hour and 50 minutes will be racing for, but the grid is set for GT3 and LMP3. Join Graham Goodwin and me, Johnny Palmer, for the racing action later on this afternoon. And bye for now.